Okay, so the sound issues and the camera issues should be resolved. Welcome to my channel. This is Alpha Centauri. You can call me Alpha. And in this channel, while I am a Catholic, this is not a Catholic channel. We specialize in deconstructing and analyzing apologetics and polemics. And what we do here is anti-apologetics. But we do this to all faiths and philosophies, not just Christianity, not just Islam, not just Buddhism, but everything, including non-belief. Today, we're going to specialize on non-belief. So a few months ago, I wanted to do a video called What If God Never Existed? The wording there is very key to what I wanted to do in the video. But I was in the planning phase when Father Mike Schmidt let his video out called What If God Doesn't Exist? So I was like, well, Father Mike Schmidt has A, a bigger audience, and B, is going to do it better than I'm going to do it, so I'll put it on the back burner or never get around to it. There's going to be a scripted video. This is not scripted. But then today, Logic released a video called Atheism Means Nothing Matters. Now please believe in God. So let's do this. Let's address what Father Mike's message was to begin with, because there seems to be a misunderstanding there. Logic was projecting a lot of Christianese and Protestantism into Father Mike's message, and I would say even a lot of evangelicalism as well. You have to throw all that away. There's no teaching in Catholicism that atheism is nihilism. We do understand that some atheists are nihilists, but that's not the teaching. Also, there's no official teaching in the church that says you have to believe in a literal six-day creation or a literal flood. That's just not a Bible teaching in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is only taught in a handful of verses, and most of those verses have to do with the New Testament and Jesus and stuff like transubstantiation and stuff that Logic wouldn't agree with anyway. But it very little to do with the Old Testament outside that of the Old Testament being true and the Old Testament being the Word of God. So like I said, there's not a lot being taught on specific verses or specific chapters officially by the church. You're allowed to believe what you want to believe about it. Okay? Move forward. Let's address some of Logic's concerns before we get into the meat of what I want to say. So Logic seemed to think that Father Mike Schmidt and Catholics, or Christians in general, were asking why in a materialistic sense, or that we're asking why to ask why God did something. That's not what the question why is, and that's not even what Father Mike was addressing. So Father Mike Schmidt was addressing hopelessness and meaninglessness, and that is something that I have gone through. I have gone through hopelessness. I have gone through despair. There's two great lines from Angel. If you ever watch the Josh Whedon series, the D-Night series, which is We Help the Hopeless. And everything matters because nothing matters. And those are two belief systems that I highly believe in. So for those that don't know, long after I wasn't a Christian and long before I went back to the Catholic Church, I was a deconstructionist. And I came to deconstructionism because I felt all philosophies and all religions were kind of pointless and didn't really do anything for me. I, from there, became a Socratic, and then from a Socratic, a utilitarian, and from a utilitarian, a Stoic, philosophically. Somewhere in there, I became a Taoist. That has more to do with the fact that I am a martial artist as well, not really so much with religion and philosophy. But the two, Stoicism and Taoism, formed my belief system for a good 15 years. I still think the philosophy is pretty cool, pretty radical. So let's get into what I wanted to talk about. Now that we addressed those two, Father Mike and Logic. What if God never existed? Not what if there was a creator God, not what if there is no God currently. What if there just never was a God? What does that change? And here's the big drum roll. It changes nothing. Because if there was never a God and things just played out how they played out, things would have still played out how they played out. So that goes to my next question. What if there's no free will? What if everything's deterministic and you bear no responsibility for your choices? What does that change for your reality? It changes nothing. So there being no God doesn't change the fact that you still have all the wars that ever happened. Every bad thing that's ever happened still happened, just without objective meaning to it, just without a purpose to it. It just happened. And if everything's deterministic, there's no responsibility for these actions having happened. So what does that mean? That means that it's better to live a life with the illusion of free will, or virtual free will, as I like to term it. That means that it's better to view a life with a concrete moral system or philosophy behind it to process, a lens to use, whether it's Stoicism or Nietzscheanism or Hegelism, whatever you want. Pick your philosophy and run with it. But does philosophy equate religion? No. Religion's something more. Religion's something deeper. It's ritual. It's connection to the past. It has a lot more deep richness than just simple philosophy. As a martial artist, I like to think of it as a school. Your school has a history that goes back to a previous master, and that goes back to a previous master, and somehow it ends up in Japan, and somehow it'll end up in China. And so you adopt this rich history that informs your actions and your meanings, and even will inform how you interpret certain moves that have lost their contextual application. And so you will, as part of becoming a black belt, you will have to explain a rule that has no explanation. That is the utility of philosophy and the utility of religion. Religion has more utility and more practical application than philosophy. But if you don't have religion, you still have philosophy. If you have neither religion nor philosophy, then I'm not talking to you. I'm just not. I wish I was. I wish I could talk to you. I wish I could tell you in the depth of my depravity when I was a complete hedonist, when I was on the verge of humanism, when I didn't believe in any religion, when I thought the Bible was complete nonsense, especially the stuff about the giants and people living for thousands of years, when I just couldn't buy into it. I wish I could tell you right now that don't worry though, because I went from being an atheist to being a deist or theist, and then eventually I converted. No, throughout all of that, I always believed in God. There was never a moment in my entire life that I didn't believe in God. There was moments that I didn't trust what the Bible said, and there were moments that I viewed the Pope as just a person with an opinion and a lot of power. But there was never a time that I didn't believe in God, and there was never a time that I believed that St. Peter didn't have a successor. I've always believed those two things. There was never a point in my life where I didn't believe them. And even before I had a concept of religion or a concept of the church or a concept of religiosity or even a concept of history, I still believed in God as my first memories. In fact, my very, very first memory that I've ever had is me and my family, I think I was around 2 or 3, driving up a mountain, and the mountain being a very thin road and the tires slightly going over the edge, and me looking over the edge of the car and looking down and realizing, wow, like we're going to die. That's my first memory. My first memory is the realization of mortality. That's my first memory in life. So there is no moment that I thought I was going to live forever in that sense. In fact, when I left religion the furthest is when I was pursuing the goal of immortality in some sense. It was that want and desire to live forever that pulled me away from religion. This is obviously me as a teenager, it's not as an adult. And it was the recognition of my mortality that brought me back to my faith, just to put it very plainly. Trying to do things on my own, trying to force my will upon the universe, and seeing that that didn't work is what brought me back to religion. Because when I tried to live as a utilitarian, things didn't work out. When I tried to live as a Taoist, things didn't work out. When I read books like the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Book of Five Rings, like Confucianism and Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, no matter what holy book I went to, there was something incomplete. And there was advice in there that would lead me down the wrong path, that would have me give in to my worst inclinations. And when I read the Bible, that wasn't the case. The Bible actually listed examples, especially in Judges, of people doing exactly that and failing spectacularly and destroying their lives and destroying the whole of their mini society. And having read history and other religions, it gave me a context for what the Bible was doing. Because for the most part, the Bible is just speaking against the other religions. It's mostly polemic stuff in there, and then the rest is just story, narrative. So right now, I am working on a scripted video reviewing Satan's Guide to the Bible. And what I say in there is that nothing in that video, Satan's Guide to the Bible, should scare off any Christian, because it's all stuff that's in any study Bible. The problem is that you have apologists who are going in and trying to sugarcoat everything so that way they don't scare off potential believers. And I do believe that is dishonest. I do believe that that is presenting a false Christ and a false gospel, because the people who are looking to convert in aren't being told the truth. They're being sold a bag of goods. But when a Christian says that Jesus gives my life meaning, or that religion gives my life meaning, or I ask why, and what I got back was God. What they're not saying is that God did this to me, or that as an atheist you can't have moral standards. Yes, there are Christians who say that. Yes, there are apologists out there who corrupt the truth of the gospel to try to win converts. I'm not saying there's not, but not every Christian who says that are trying to manipulate you into believing. Sometimes they're just telling you what brought their life meaning. So what changes if God never existed? Nothing. This is the reality we live in. No amount of calling God immoral, no amount of blasphemy, no amount of anger at religion, or anger at your parents for how they treated you, or anger at religious people for how they behaved throughout history is going to change the fact that religion does exist, is going to change the fact that people do believe in God. And if you're deterministic, you can't shake them out of that belief anyway. So a better action would be just to present the truth and not get involved in polemics and apologetics. And instead, just state that you don't believe or that you do believe. And then if someone asks you why, state that. That is not me telling Logic to quit. Logic is one of my oldest subscriptions. I think he's actually my first subscription I ever had on YouTube. My very second subscription I ever had on YouTube, I believe, was Atheism is Unstoppable. Okay? So I'm not telling an atheist to stop being an atheist or an atheist to stop producing videos. What I'm saying is that the cacophony of ideas should exist, but understand that not everyone is going to agree with your perception of reality. And I, as someone who believes in free will and believes in God, am never going to agree with you that there isn't one. So what changes if God doesn't exist? Nothing. Except whatever is transcendentally afterwards, right? But that's not what I'm saying. The actions of this universe are still the actions of this universe. Everything that has happened up till now has happened. So the only thing that can change is what you do going forward. And for me, following the tenets of the Bible makes me a better person and makes me treat people better. So that's what I need to be a better person. And that's why I look at the Bible in a utilitarian, practical way. You don't have to. I look at it as literature and philosophy. You can look at it as literal history. Someone else can look at it as a fairy tale. But just like you can get meaning out of reading a Batman comic, and I can get meaning out of reading the history of the ancient world, people can get meaning out of the Bible. And let me add that you shouldn't view God as an obstacle, especially if you don't believe in him. And if someone treated you poorly or bad, and they happen to be religious, that doesn't mean that all religious people are bad. Just like atheists do bad stuff, that doesn't mean all atheists are bad. And just because you're religious and you're looking at an atheist doesn't mean that an atheist doesn't have any moral standard or moral code. One, they live in a society that's indoctrinated and completely immersed in Christian culture. And they can't even get away from Abrahamic culture, because whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, that's all an Abrahamic faith. They all follow roughly the same rules when it comes to morality and ethics. Even if God had never existed, religion would still be a thing. Because if there never was a God and religion came into being, became a thing, then it's still a thing even if there isn't a God. So you wouldn't even get away from religion if somehow your premise that God isn't real was correct. There'd still be religion, because there is religion now. So if you're saying you live in a world without a God, religion still exists in this world that you think doesn't have a God. So you can't even get away from religion if you don't believe in a God. So really what it comes down to is that I don't know if you've ever met a true, completely uninfluenced atheist. I went to China. I married a Chinese woman, an atheist, and even she's not completely immune from indoctrination from the previous religion that actually ran her country, which was Buddhism. So Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism are still present in that country. While they are an atheistic country, they still are very strict on their moral codes. They're more conservative than any Christian I've ever met. The Chinese culture is an extremely conservative culture, and they have very strong morals and very strong standards that have nothing to do with Christianity. So anybody who lives in the world is not saying you have to be a Christian to have morals. What they're saying is that my morals are based on Christianity. All right, please like this channel. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please leave a comment down below and share this video. The road to monetization is real. I am less than 1,000 hours of watch time for monetization. So help me out. Let's get there, because this is what I'm doing full time right now. So let's make it worth my while, huh? Thank you so much. I love you all. Peace. Bye.